Okay, so let's get right into this real quick. Now, as you know, I'm a little bit busy tonight, a little bit running late because I was running a brief. So the bottom line is I did a video previously, and the video got a lot of anger from people because, to be fair, I didn't explain it in tiny little itty bitty digestible amounts of information. People got mad. They were really angry. And now, the part of the problem was that I tried to do case law. And when I explain case law by reading a case, it's too upper level. It's too top shelf. So what I want to do is break down some of the new laws that have just passed this week, last week, things like that, so that you understand exactly what's going on. Now, I'm going to make it very simple and very easy. I'm going to go ahead and basically give you the exact code, what's going on with it, and then give you examples. That way, everybody's in the same boat. Everybody knows what's going on. There's no confusion. You don't have to be a paralegal. You don't have to be a lawyer, to understand what's going on. Now, let's get right into this puppy. Just to go ahead and answer Tammy's question real quick. Yes, a couple of politicians have reached out to me to go ahead and get my ideas of where Social Security should go into the future. Yes, I have spoken with some of them, and some of those ideas are already in DC doing what they do, which is getting basically gobbled up by other politicians to use it for whatever the purpose they're going to use it for. The point is, I have not sought a DC position because, as you know, I own a law firm. I'm the most viewed and subscribed to disability attorney in America. And if I were to be sucked into a position or elected to a position or do any of that stuff as a politician would, the problem is I would have to do something with a boatload of clients and a law firm and all that stuff. And that's you know what I mean? It's a tough ship to maneuver when you need to immediately do something like that. And, other attorneys have said, if they were going to make you a disability judge, would you sell your law firm? My answer back in the day, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, would have been absolutely. Absolutely. My answer today would be absolutely not. There's no way. No way at all. There's no way. No way. If I were to become a politician, whatever, different rankings, different levels, whatever, would I do it? As of right now, I don't see that as a reality because, once again, in order to do that, you have to sell the firm, which I'm not willing to do at the very, very moment. So, that's kind of where we're at. Now, let's get right to specifically the rule that this video is on, which is Program Operation Manual System GN 02250.005, fault determinations for overpayment waiver requests. When does this come into play? When you are requesting that an overpayment be waived so you don't have to pay money. When the SSA comes to you and says, hey, Billie Jean, Karen Lebinowitz, Bill Stein, whatever. When the SSA comes to you and says, hey, you owe us money. And you're sitting there going like, I don't owe you shit, bro. Hey, my benefits. I don't owe you $1. The SSA then goes, oh, well, we believe you owe us the money. And the way it used to work is that you'd have to prove your innocence. But now that flipped. Martin O'Malley, the commissioner, who's no longer with the SSA as of like today, the way that works is now the SSA has to go ahead and show proof of fault. Like that you screwed up somehow, that you shoulda, coulda, woulda, maybe, shoulda known. So what we're covering in this video are the 11, 22, 24, like 2 weeks ago, week and a half ago, changes to the rule of what fault is, okay? First, I want to start with some examples. I think it's going to be better if we start with examples because then it'll get your brain thinking in hypothetical form, okay? Let's get to it. Example 1. This is straight from the policy guideline book. Example 1. I don't know why they use that name. That's a tough name to pronounce. So let's just do Katie received an overpayment notice and submitted a waiver request to the local field office. So basically, Katie's like not happy. She just got notice that she owes the SSA money. She's pissed off. She's like, I don't owe the money. I don't owe them anything. Now, Katie said they could not timely report changes that affected their payments due to a state emergency declaration that prevented them from calling, mailing, or visiting the field office. So Katie is offering a defense to the fault that exists. saying that some major incident, kind of like a COVID restriction, limited her ability to do calling, mailing, or visiting the field office, which is ironic because you can't really visit the field office now without, an appointment. That changed. Yeah. The technician reviewed the waiver request. So basically, Katie sent in an SSA 632. The field office technician reviewed the waiver request, that she submitted on record. Now, the technician from the SSA determined that Katie did not furnish material information, but that they were unable to comply, right, with reporting responsibilities due to the state emergency. The technician found Katie not at fault for causing the overpayment. Next, the technician will determine if the overpayment can be waived based on one of the other waiver provisions. So, what do we learn? We learn that in unique circumstances, like, for example, a massive statewide, federal-wide, emergency declaration, something like COVID, they can claim that if you were not able to make notice on the SSA because you weren't able to contact them in a proper way, that they will go ahead and say, okay, we don't think you have fault here. If you don't have fault here, we might waive the overpayment. Now, this might not be important to you in the immediate sense until you get a letter from the SSA saying, hey, you owe us $34,000. You owe us $78,000. You owe us $1,200. You owe us whatever. And I know that some of you guys are like, well, I don't have an overpayment on me right now. Why do I need to learn about this? Well, you need to learn about this because I'm teaching you the defenses to what you're going to say when they come at you and demand money from you. So I'm teaching you basically how to defend yourself from the SSA when they claim that, you potentially owe them tens of thousands of dollars. So that's why this video is important, because it teaches you how to defend yourself against the SSA. Example 2. Another name, Rysand. It's Rhysand. We're just going to use it. Rysand received an overpayment notice and requested a waiver by completing the SSA 632 form and signing the financial authorization. Okay, so basically, Rysand got an overpayment. Let's say they told him he owed $65,000 back. He then sent in an SSA 632 saying, hey, I don't have to pay this back. I think I deserve a waiver. Rysand said they could not timely report changes that affected their payments because they always came to the field office to conduct business because Rysand has difficulty hearing on the telephone. All right, so let's break this down. Rysand was supposed to report changes. If he didn't report those changes, then the SSA would keep paying him what he normally should get. Now, because Rysand didn't report those changes, the SSA just kept paying him the check like they normally would instead of the reduced amount that he was supposed to get. Now, Rysand said, hey, I got to go in to the field office because I can't hear. I can't use the telephone. Rysand's adult child had been out of town for several weeks. All right. Now you're starting to think about this like a lawyer. You're starting to see how you can build a defense to show why you shouldn't have to pay back that overpayment, right? The person doesn't have good hearing, can't use a telephone, right? The older son, right? The Ryland's adult child, or child's maybe daughter, has been out of town for several weeks. Well, then who's going to drive him? Who's going to drive him? Right, to the local field office. Rysand did not have another relative to take them to the field office, so there's nobody to take them. They can't communicate with the SSA. Rysand can no longer drive. Oh, we know he can't drive himself now. You can feel the elements building. You're learning how to build a claim to show why you shouldn't have to pay your overpayment. So Rysand can no longer drive, which prevented him from reporting changes that affected his benefits. The SSA technician determined that although Rysand did not report material information, when they say material information, what they're saying is it would have changed his benefits. He would have not gotten benefits or gotten a reduced benefit as a result of the information he was supposed to report. So basically, the technician said Rysand did not report material information. But, looking at this thing, they are not at fault for causing the overpayment. Next, the technician will determine if the overpayment can be waived based on one of the other waiver provisions. So, are you starting to see structurally how you can build your claim against the SSA to explain why you failed to meet your reporting requirements? Now, I should do a video on reporting requirements, like why and what you have to report, because most people don't know what they're supposed to tell the SSA. They get a little pamphlet. I'd say 40% read the pamphlet. I'd say 40%, which is not a bad percentage. That's a pretty good percentage. But here's the thing. Most people are in this kind of like delusional land of like, I'm just getting this benefit and I don't have any restrictions and screw them if I do, right? Most people live in that. I like to think of it as a pleasant bubble. It's really a nice bubble to live in. Now, as a result of that, when they get hit with an overpayment, it is like Cupid himself shot them through the heart with an arrow poisoned with the reality that government benefits always have some horrible, horrible things on them. Some toxins on them, some restrictions on them, some little spikes on them. They always come with little spikes. You'll never get a government, based benefit that you paid for. It's ridiculous in itself, but you'll never get a benefit, right, from the government that didn't have some sort of toxins on it. There's always something that's going to hold you back and not give you your full benefits without restrictions. So the point here is, just to be very, very clear and very, very direct, you have to build the structural pattern about how you are no longer at fault. And I'm going to go through all the different, no fault situations after we do this next example. Example 3. Another difficult name. Just to be clear, the names that they had for these 3 examples were F-E-Y-R-E, I think fair or fair. Then we have R-H-Y-S-A-N-D. I think that's risend or risend. I'm not sure. Now, example 3's name is NYX. I have no idea how to pronounce that. I'm assuming Nix. I'm not sure. I have no idea how to pronounce that. All right. Nix received an overpayment notice due to excess earnings. So he earned too much. Nix requested a waiver and told us that they did not realize that their wages would cause an overpayment. So Nix, like most Americans, doesn't know how the program works, doesn't understand SGA limitations with substantial gainful activity, and just, earned money and thought life is good. But again, there's always toxins on government benefits. Nix understood that he had a duty to report wages to us. Oh, okay, so now we're getting spicy. Nix, on the phone or in person, gave a damaging statement to the SSA for his ability to waiver the fault, to get rid of the fault. He said, yeah, I knew I was supposed to report wages. I knew it. I did know that. Okay. And then, so Nix understood that he had a duty to report wages to the SSA and do so regularly. All right. So Nix just shot himself in the foot because he's got no defense now to his knowledge base being restrictive in his ability to know if he's supposed to report wages. Now, let's keep reading because I have a feeling they're going to throw Nix under the bus here. Even after they reported their wages, Nix continued to receive monthly payments. Nix thought that they were, okay, so that's interesting. Even after they reported their wages, so Nix reported some wages, Nix continued to receive monthly payments. Nix thought that they were entitled. Why are they using the? So again, it's the SSA going full. Nix thought that he or she, and in this case it's they, were entitled to receive the payments that they continued to receive. So he thought that even if he earns more, and as long as he reports it, then he can keep getting the benefits. Okay? They've really changed at the SSA with their writings. I mean, they've gone full Monty here. So Nix thought, and I'm going to read it to you as it's actually written, not with me putting more standard terminology in there. Nix thought that they were entitled to receive the payments that they continued to receive. Nix thought that they were entitled, the technician determined that Nix understood and complied with the requirement to report their wages. And there was no evidence that Nix knew that certain payments they accepted were incorrect. The technician finds Nix is not at fault. So let's read that again. The technician determined that Nix understood and complied with the requirements to report their wages. So he knew he had to report, right? And he basically, looks like, did some reporting here. And Nix knew that certain payments they accepted were incorrect. Wait a minute. There's no evidence that Nix knew that certain payments they accepted were incorrect. So they're saying here, he thought, or she thought, or they thought that basically, if they reported, that there shouldn't be any limitation to receiving the full benefit. Okay. The technician finds, because of that Nix is not at fault. Next, the technician will determine if the overpayment can be waived based on one of the other waiver provisions. Now, look, this could have gone many ways. He could have said, yeah, I should have reported. Or he could have said, no, I didn't realize I had to report. Or he could have said, I have some mental limitation, which makes it hard for me to understand when I have to report or don't have to report. There's a lot of defenses that you could start to bring up as to why you were limited in doing so. And remember, a lot of you guys won't realize your defenses until you sit there quietly in a room and think about why this whole thing came down the way it did, and now you owe $60,000 to the SSA, which, by the way, is the U.S. Treasury, like the one group you don't want to owe money to. All right, let's go now over to here. Here are the factors to consider when evaluating fault. Okay, when evaluating fault, right, the SSA must always consider all the circumstances surrounding the overpayment. We must always consider these factors to decide what an individual knew or should have known, and to decide what ability they had to make a report to us. Like heads upping the SSA, I'm making more, I have this inheritance come in, whatever. We must consider the individual's, one, understanding of the reporting requirements. So what does that mean? It means, did the claimant have any opportunity to have knowledge about how the reporting requirements work? Did the claimant have the capacity to understand these reporting requirements? It could have had, low IQ, could have had multiple personality disorder, and they're just a different person at different times, things like that. Number two, the SSA must consider the individual's agreement to report events affecting payments. Again, agreement to report events affecting payment. Are they reporting things? Are they participating in the process? Are they being a team player here? Are they trying to help out? Are they trying to be, faithful to, what the benefit system requires of them? Or are they standing back and being like, I'm not going to help you. You called me, I'm not calling you back. SSA calls them 5 times. They don't pick up the phone. SSA calls them another time, leaves a message. They never call them back. Next one, number 3, we must consider the individual's knowledge of the occurrence of events that should have been reported. Now, here's where it gets a little funny, because remember, you go back and say that's an overpayment. You were overpaid by the SSA 5 years ago, 4 years ago, 3 years ago. The knowledge of what happened back then is fuzzy. You get somebody with, anxiety, panic attack, PTSD, depression, schizoaffective disorders in general, their knowledge base on what actually happened is a bit of a shit show because they don't really remember. They don't remember what they did 3 weeks ago. So the thing is, when the SSA is like, and what do you know about that date and that time 5 years ago on that moment when it occurred? And the person sitting there being like, I don't think I even had eggs this morning. I don't know. Then you have to look at the capacity of the individual to be able to provide historically relevant events about that overpayment 5 years ago. Next one, number 4. The SSA must consider the individual's efforts to comply with the reporting requirements. Are they making an effort? Are they trying to participate? Are they doing it consistently at appropriate spaced intervals that are required by the SSA? Most of them are monthly. Like what you earn this month. It's not really a bi-monthly thing of like what you earn this time. It's usually monthly. Okay. Number 5, we must consider the individual's opportunities to comply with the reporting requirements. This is the most important one. in my opinion, when it comes to establishing a defense against the overpayment. Let me read it to you again. The SSA must consider the individual's opportunities to comply with the reporting requirements. What do we mean by that? We mean that what were the opportunities? Was the person able to comply? Were they able to contact the SSA? Well, if the SSA was shut down because of COVID, they couldn't call them. If the SSA is shut down so that they couldn't go into the office, they couldn't get in. If they don't know how to use a phone or a computer or have access to those as a homeless person, they can't set up an appointment to go to the local field office. If they don't have money to own a computer and pay for internet, shit ain't going to happen. It's not going to happen. What were the opportunities to comply with the reporting requirements? Let's say the person is on heavy-duty pain medication. Well, they're not going to know what the hell's going on. So did the claimant have the opportunity to go ahead and comply is based off of how they're disabled and how the SSA is available to interact with them. And sometimes it doesn't connect. Sometimes COVID happens and they can't get through to the SSA through the phone system. Sometimes the SSA has a 50-year low unemployment and you got to wait to get on the phone with them. Although the phone lines are a little bit better right now. So that's something that I think is particularly interesting here. You got to thank Martin O'Malley, Commissioner Martin O'Malley. Well, he's just stepped down as commissioner. He's now Citizen Martin O'Malley. But the point is, you got to thank him. He did a good job with the phone system. Next one. We're going over to 6. The SSA must consider the individual's understanding of the obligations to return checks which were not due to them. You get some people with low IQs, they don't understand how money works. They don't understand that when they have money, sometimes it's not their money. Sometimes you give that person something and they don't understand that basically, they have to do certain things to it to upkeep it, like put oil in a car. That seems to be a big one for a lot of people, right? But the point is understanding of the obligation to return checks which were not due to the person. Did they understand it? Did they have the mental competence to understand it? And one of the big things I want to point out is that people always view their existence inside America as a Social Security recipient from their mental capacity, which is something I had to learn. It was a hard lesson for me to learn because I always looked at people, and a lot of people disappointed me because I would compare them against my intellectual capacity. And I would say, okay, my normative standard is this. What is their normative standard? And it was always a different standard for the most part, right? Now, to be fair, my parents stuck me in a very expensive high-level academia institution. As a result of that, I was competing with aggressive mental monsters. But with that said, not everybody is at the same mental level. You have some people who cannot do basic addition. You have some people who can do the highest level of math, and we don't know what to do with them. Do we give them a back scratch? Do we give them a massage? How do we help them? How do we say, great, make some more? What do we do, right? So there's people at all different levels of mental capacity, understanding and the complexities of how the program works. So understanding of the obligation to return the checks which were not due. That's a big thing. Does the person have the mental competence to understand the accounting of it? And a lot of people sometimes don't. That's why we have what are called payees. That's why these payees that exist are basically people who stand in the place of the claimant to receive the benefits so that they, the payee, can take care of the claimant's financial obligations. Because some of these claimants, right, they got mental impairments, they're on heavy medications, they're in pain all the time, they can't focus. Some of these claimants who require a payee are not able to financially handle the obligation of their accounting, right? Okay, cool. Next one, final one. The SSA must consider the claimant's ability to comply with the reporting requirements. It's simple, it's straightforward, cuts right to the heart of it. Do they get what's going on? You have claimants all the time that, get in trouble for something. And, at the end of the day, to be very fair, they, even after you explain it to them, that's what happened with that last video. That last video I did, basically on that one case that was decided. And then they did basically, an updated ruling through their palms with it. I went through it and explained it in detail based upon the case status, the actual briefing that was created for it. And people hated it. They're like, what the hell is this shit? This doesn't make any sense. And that's because people didn't have the reporting requirement understanding. Similar to that video, which was understanding the wording and the theory of what they wanted to occur. Which, by the way, it's whenever you read these SSA cases, they don't read like a nice Harry Potter book. They read like, something that you don't want to read, but you get stuck reading. And then you read it once, you're like, what the hell was that? And then you read it the second time, you're like, I think I get it. And then you read it the third time, you're like, that's what they were trying to say? They could have just written that as a 2-sentence whatever. Anyway, that's what you need to know. Now, here are some things that you should keep in mind that they look for when they're trying to figure out if you're guilty as shit when it comes to being at fault for the overpayment. Okay? Let's go through it. Number 1, did the individual provide incorrect information? Are they a liar? Or being disingenuous, if we want to put some flowers next to the framed word of lying, right? Are they a liar? Did the individual know and understand that the information was incorrect at the time they provided the information? Now, remember, we're using our lawyer brains right now. Did the individual know, right? So step 1, did they know, right? Did they know they had to do something? And then on top of that, element 2, did they understand what was going on? Because remember, knowing you have to do something and then understanding why you have to do it are 2 totally separate things. You could get somebody who knows that they have to do something, but you could also get somebody who doesn't understand because mechanically inside their brain it just doesn't work. They would look at this thing and they don't know why. And you would think, well, they knew they had to do it. That should be enough. But being able to show, when you peel away the onion, that the person doesn't have the mental cognitive ability to understand why helps prove that they knew to do it but didn't know why creates a defense around the individual that maybe they're not mentally capable of handling this financial situation, which of course creates a defense to the fault situation where the SSA is trying to put a little pin on you that says you're at fault. Next one, okay? It is documented on their record that a technician discussed their reporting responsibilities with them and that they understood those instructions. Have their circumstances changed where they may no longer understand them? All right, let me explain this real quick. I want to break it down. We're going to put our lawyer hat on real quick. It is documented somewhere in their system. There's a note or a PDF or something on a calendar that says, I talked with this person and basically, we had a discussion. So is it documented? Yes, we found it somewhere in the computer system. On their record, inside the SSA, that a technician, an employee of the SSA, discussed their reporting responsibilities with them, okay? Discussed what the person had to do with telling the SSA about what would happen if they didn't report and, how their benefits would be affected. So they had the birds and the bees of Social Security overpayment conversations, and it's noted in their system. Okay, so they discussed their reporting responsibilities with them and that they understood those instructions. Now that's hey, wait a minute there. Hold up there. Hey. And that they understood the instructions. How the hell do we know if somebody really understood something? You ever talk to somebody and they're like, yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah, I'm on board. I'm in still. I'm still in. By the way, my phone is buzzing. I know you guys are calling to do the live session. I have to put the phone over here because I'm getting buzzed to death over here. All right, so here's the deal. That's the tricky part. Now we're going to read it again. You now have all of that knowledge. Now, using your lawyer brain, we're going to break it down, okay? Here we go. It is documented on their record that a technician discussed their reporting responsibilities with them and that they understood those instructions. What if you were a lawyer, what part of that sentence would you attack? They understood those instructions. How do you prove that they understood what was going on? How were they found disabled? What medications are they on, right? Okay, now let's go to the next sentence. Have their circumstances changed where they may no longer understand them? So that's a good point. Because remember, let's say you had a talk with somebody, and that person who's receiving benefits is like, yeah, I got it. I'm good. I got this. I'm feeling good. And the technician's like, so you're good. And the claimant's like, yeah, I'm good. And the technician's like, so if I test you and say, if you earn over this much, what do you have to do? And the claimant's like, I got to report it because I'm not getting a benefit that month. And then the technician's like, okay, all right, you're good. You are solid. Okay, good. Then we're good to go. So what happens is, right, over here, the technician's like, I got this. This guy knows what's going on. The claimant is solid. The claimant is not going to screw this up. But then the claimant, while shopping at a 7-Eleven, gets horribly, horribly attacked by the toilet. It overflows, goes into his nose. There is a viral, bacterial, fungal, Hollywood-level event. It causes, I know you guys are buzzing the shit out of me. You just got to remember, I'm going to do the live video after this where I answer questions. You're just going to have to, I don't even know what to do with this because I'm clicking buttons on it and it's still vibrating. So we have, and remember, The Last of Us, the show, the movie series. I'm waiting for season 2. I'm not waiting patiently. It's bothering me, so it should bother you. So here's the deal. Last of Us is a show where they talk about an end of world scenario, society situation. And me loves it. All right, so here's the deal. Here's what you need to know. So they then ask, have their circumstances changed? Well, our claimant, after having that discussion and going to a 7-Eleven and having a toilet have a torpedo-like moment where it just goes in his nose and now he's got a viral, bacterial, fungal brain infection. I mean, where do you get disability law that's this fun? I don't know where you can find it that's this good. This is when you bite into like a fruit and you're like, God, that's a good strawberry today. So, all right, the point is, I don't know why we're on fruit, but I guess I miss it. I need some. It's very expensive right now. All right, so the point that I'm getting at is that now this person is cognitively on a downward slope. We know that this particular situation, this particular setup is going to cause that person's brain to turn into, unfortunately, a zombie. And it will take 10 days for that brain to go full zombie. So we know that after the bathroom incident, we've got like 3 to 4 days where he'll still know if he's got a report about any extra income he's got coming in. But then after that point, full zombie. Doesn't have the mental capability to understand what the SSA technician and him had a little connection with, going through it over the phone. Now we have a claimant who has changed. You could change the scenario. I don't know why you would. You could. I don't know why you would. It's just, you shouldn't. But if you wanted to, you could. I mean, if you wanted to be boring, you could be like, the claimant got into a car accident, head trauma, or the claimant got into a horse accident. That sounds so weird. The claimant got into a horse accident. How did he get into one? Well, there was a horse that ran into him. Because, normally you're riding a horse, like you have an accident where you fall off the horse. But when you're in an accident with a horse, the horse falls into you. I'm just okay. Anyways, point is, if you wanted to be a disgruntled employee, you would say in this hypothetical that the claimant basically went ahead and, to be very fair, had a car accident. But we don't want that. We want zombie man or zombie woman. Let's be free. Or zombie they, right? Zombie they is an option now too. All right. So with that said, have their circumstances changed where they may no longer understand them, right? Clearly, our claimant, a good, honest, about to be degenerate human being, turned into a magical zombie, is no longer capable of understanding things, and therefore they have fault, defenses. They can go ahead and say, well, since I got in the car accident, I haven't been able to understand things, so whoops. Well, since I took that medication, it wiped out my memory. I haven't been able to understand things. Well, since my 7-Eleven incident where it went in my nose, and it is what it is. And then I went and ate at an IHOP and decided that I needed more because I was hungry from all the needs of my infernal zombieisms. So then, of course, you go to Waffle House. But the point is, you have a defense to this crucial, incredible thing known as did you know and still understand down the line. Mark Vietti, thank you for the $10 donation. I super appreciate it. That's awesome. Very, very cool. Very, very cool. Okay, so let's see. All right, next one. Does their record show they received clear instructions to return checks that were not due? So this is an important one. Sometimes the SSA will call a person and be like, hey, you have an overpayment. You got to pay back that money, right? And then the person's like, okay. Does that mean that the person understands that they have to return the checks immediately, right now, 10 days from now, the full amount? Do you return them as checks as they were written to you in their full amount? Right. So the problem is, does their record show that the claimant received clear instructions to return the checks that were not due? Well, okay. What details did we give the claimant? Did you tell them how much is due when? Did you tell them how it's supposed to be paid? Did you tell them where it's supposed to be paid? Did you tell them what special envelope it needs to go into? Is it going to be digital? Is the bank just going to go ahead and grab it? Does he need to pay by check and then he sees it zipping away digitally where they get into his checking account and take it right from there? So the question becomes, how clear were the instructions? Very important for you to create, essentially, let's call like it is, a defense to whether or not you knew what the hell you were supposed to do. Now, next one. Are they receiving benefits due to an intellectual disability or mental impairment that may have prevented their ability to make a required report to return payments not due? Let me explain to you. Some of you guys are like, okay, they got an IQ in the 60s, right? Sure. They're not going to know. You could tell them one thing, and they're going to remember it very differently. And then they're going to report that very differently. And then things are going to get kind of funky. And it is what it is. Next one, to be very fair, right? You have the next situation. Let's say somebody has PTSD. They keep having a nightmare. They keep having a flashback. Do you think their brain is going to remember all the stuff that they were told prior to, 15 of those flashbacks? No. Those PTSD people, there is an eraser in their head. Some of them have chalk. Depends on how old they are. Some of them have, marker. Depends on how old they are. Some of them it's digital. But the point is, right, they've got an eraser in their head. And after so many flashbacks, so many nightmares, things just seem to get erased. It just is. It's how PTSD works. And then other things become red blinking lights where they can see more detail than they've ever seen before. Point is, okay, is there an intellectual disability, a mental impairment that prevents them from understanding what they've got to do? Okay, very important. Mark Vietti, again, thank you for the $10 donation. That's absolutely awesome. I'm probably going to spend that on fruit or doggy treats. So it's one of those two things. Now, with that said, the next one. Does the individual have a physical condition that prevents their ability to report a change or from returning a payment, such as a hearing impairment, a visual impairment, a mobility challenge, an illness, a temporary institutionalization? Okay. So let's think about this for a moment. Let's go over, let's have a little moment here. Let's shaky shake, right? So what they're saying here is, did this claimant have some, it doesn't have to be your senses up here, and we call them special senses, but it could have been other senses. It could have been other mobility restrictions, could have been other issues. I mean, honestly, like something that I think is very common that a lot of people don't realize is that if you have to go to the bathroom so often that there is no way for you to, drive that distance to get to the hearing office, and then you have some other, or the field office, and you have some other special sense limitation where you can't go on the phone. Or, for example, you can't go on the computer because you can't properly see and type or whatever. If you got to go to the bathroom all the time and you can't drive to their spot and you have these other special limitations, then guess what? You have physical impairments that create a defense for your ability to claim, or for them to claim that you should be at fault, because you couldn't, there's no way you could do it. You were impaired to the point that fault should not be put on your shoulders because it would be unconscionable. Next one. Were there any challenges that prevented the individual from making a required report or returning payments not due? In other words, emergency declarations, Pandemic. Okay, let me give you an example. Let's say somebody has a mental impairment, okay? A female. She's in a bad relationship. The bad relationship person doesn't let her have her cell phone and restricts her to rooms in the house. That is an example of where somebody is prevented from returning payments or interacting with the SSA. I'll give you another example. Let's say that the individual, okay, is in a situation where they live in the middle of nowhere, also known as parts of Texas, also known as parts of North Dakota, also known as most of Alaska, the middle of nowhere, also known as all of Canada, the middle of nowhere. So the point is, I'm kidding. I love you Canadians. You're right up there with Kentucky, just right up there. So the point is, okay, you're in the middle of nowhere. There's no cell towers, right? You're basically, your car broke down. You don't have a cell phone that's working. And, it takes you forever to get something fixed because you live in the middle of nowhere. Some of you think that doesn't exist. Some of you think that, with Amazon dropping off a package, magically everything works out. Some people don't live in your world where Amazon will deliver it tomorrow with a little blue shirt on. That doesn't exist for everybody. All right. Now, with that said, we're coming down to the final ones to determine if you're at fault for the overpayment. And therefore, if you're at fault, you got to pay it back, unless you fall into some other sort of, allowable, we forgive you situation. Okay. Pale Rider 747. Thank you for the $2 donation. Super appreciate it. That's awesome. Very, very good. What's Walter's deal with Kentucky? I actually love Kentucky. And here's why. Kentucky makes aluminum boats that are really well made, exceptionally well made. And in Kentucky, there are a ton of people who basically are trying to sell aluminum boats. Now, some of you may be thinking, other than Kentucky and, brothers and sisters and cousins, there's a lot of that. But other than that, when it comes to welding aluminum, Kentucky has got that down. And Kentucky has a lot of people that are trying to get rid of their aluminum boats. And me loves aluminum boats. Me never gets a chance to restore any of them, but me loves aluminum boats. You know why? Because those aluminum boats, in their shitty, unrepaired status, will, when I die, still be in glory-filled, shitty, unrepaired status. That's the truth of it. They'll literally still be there. Now, a fiberglass boat, you take that right to the dump, you throw it out because it's got bubbles, delamination, shit show, total shit show. But an aluminum boat, you can restore that at any point. You can restore that little pupper at any point. And then you got a boat. That's hey, you know what I mean? All right. So with that said, now, Mark Vietti, a Canadians eat penguin as wrote. I did not know that. That probably is one of those little truths that doesn't get out there. So, all right. Now, with that said, all right. Did the individual not report the change because they believed it was not significant enough to affect their payment or benefit amount? This is a good point because some people don't realize what level of interaction requires them to do something to notify the SSA. Because, let's be honest. Let's say somebody, let's say you're walking, right? And then you see a granny. The granny needs to cross the street. And you help her cross the street. Let's make it a big street. You help her cross a bridge, okay? And she says, thank you for helping me, cross the bridge. I'm going to give you $200. Now, do you report the $200 that the grandma gave you to the SSA? You bet your butt you do. That's earned income. You bet your butt you do. But, you're like, I came from grandma. There's no cameras on the bridge. I'm walking this way. She's walking that way. I got an Uber on the way. You know what I mean? So you don't know where it is, but that's earned income. 100% earned income. Okay. So, all right. Next one. Does their record show they contacted us or attempted to contact us to make a required report or return payments not due? Are they alleging they attempted to contact us? Let me tell you something. The smartest claimant I know would contact the SSA once a month and ask them, anything going on with my claim, anything that I should know about, anything I should tell you. Once a month, that claimant would contact the SSA. that claimant should have had overpayments. Should have had overpayments. But once a month, they ding the bell and call the SSA. The smartest claimant I know. Now, can all the claimants do that? No, the SSA's phone system would be completely overloaded. But that claimant was very smart. All right, we have now gone over the new rule. Let me show it to you real quick. It is GN 02250.005, fault determinations for overpayment waiver requests for Title II SSDI and Title 16 SSI, which is, of course, Social Security Disability Insurance and Supplemental Security Income. This effective date on this pupperoo, right there, 11/22/24. So bottom line is, this is brand new. This is going to be used in the future. Make sure you have a defense to these future potential overpayments. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what shape the SSA is going to take. Over the past year, we had Martin O'Malley. Honestly, if we could swap out Martin O'Malley with Biden, we would have had a better 4 years. We would have had a way better experience, okay? It wouldn't have gone, full Trump. Obviously, a lot of people are upset about that. But to me, the math was very simple as to why it went full Trump. I fully understood it as it was going on. However, Martin O'Malley was a very pro-claimant commissioner. How many pro-claimant commissioners have we had? I can only remember or know of or think of one, and that was him. All the other ones were in the middle or full pro-SSA. You don't want a pro-SSA commissioner. You want a pro-claimant commissioner. That's what you want. All right, with that said, so let's see. So with that said, I want to go ahead and just let you know, I'm going to do the next video where I go live and I answer questions. You know how it works. I go live, use a fake name. You go ahead and ask me your question. You get 5 to 7 minutes. No question stacking beyond 2 questions. We only do, introductory knowledge. I don't know your full claim. And remember, no story mode. Have your legal question ready. Now, please remember to like and subscribe. It's important. It's important. You want me to make more videos? You want me to explain to you how it works? Like and subscribe, become members. That's awesome. Also, if you want to give me something as like a gift, the gift that I love to see is when you go to Google and leave a review for the law firm. Disability Resolution Law Firm. Disability Resolution Florida. Okay, right there. Boom. Now, with that said, I go live Mondays and Thursdays. It is my punishment. And then also, if you want a private session where basically you buy an hour, you can ask me a bunch of questions. You get an hour and 10-ish, an hour and 15-ish minutes to access my brain. I always do a little bit more than an hour to make sure everybody's happy. All right. With that said, I will catch you at the next video shortly. We will be starting it within the next 10 minutes. I'll see you soon, and I'll catch you there. Thanks so much. Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye.